Alright, now we move on to our reliability example from Section 3 history. The question now here is, does the source prove? Okay, the question word they have used is proof. Does the source prove that the Germans wanted to be under Nazi, wanted to. So here's my inference: the Germans actually wanted to be under Nazi rule. So this is a statement they have given to you. You must follow the statement exactly when you write your answer. Alright, let's look at source D first. Bear in mind the question again. What are you supposed to find out? Whether Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule. So first part of the evidence is all about the situation at that point in time in 1939, which is people own nothing. They have no money, right? They have no money, no work, no food, no family, nothing to turn to, and nothing to lose. Now, based on all these things here, do you see anything related to whether the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule? The question is indeed no. There's nothing here. Alright, so this part cannot be used. Then we move on to the next part. And then came 1932, where my parents, what did the parents do? They went and hurt Hitler. So yes, the Nazi portion is over here. Next morning, he had goals, he had ideas. He was on the side of the unemployed. My mother wept for joy. Okay, give this man all the votes he needs so that we can get out of our situation. So clearly here is very clear that do the Germans want to be under Nazi rule? Your inference is yes. Yes, indeed the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule because it clearly states here goals, ideas. In other words, and they wept for joy, right? In other words, right, they really the Nazi rule really appeals to them, right? Because it gives them hope. So I will brainstorm all these words out. So what? So what if they hurt and they cried? It means that it gave them hope, right? It gave them a lot of hope. It appeals to them. The message appeals to them. And that they see, they believe. What do they believe about Hitler? Get out of need means can elevate them from poverty. So I have brainstormed all these words in order to help in my explanation on why exactly it proves that the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule because they strongly believed in him, strongly believed that he can elevate them out of poverty, strongly they have a lot of hope for his rule, and all the messages actually appeal to them. How did I get all these things, all these conclusions? Is actually from the evidence that I actually highlighted here. Okay, so that's how you do it. So you will say source D proves that the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule. Follow exactly, then you write your evidence, then you write your explanation. How does this evidence actually portray that they wanted to be under Nazi rule, which is what your point implies? Alright, so your first paragraph, you can do it already. Follow the question word. Right, follow the question word. Source D proves, right, the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule. This is exactly the same as the question, right? So follow exactly, follow exactly as the question. Okay, whether or not you want to give a reason here, as they believe Germans brought them hope and wanted him to rule. This part you can either put it right beside your first line, or alternatively you can write it down in your explanation. Up to you. Okay, evidence. Quote the evidence. They came back weeping and prayed for joy. Dear God, please give them votes so get them out of my need. This is my relevant evidence, right? Because it is related to people's support of the Nazi party. Then, I will write my explanation. So what does this imply? This implies that the German wanted Hitler to be in power. In my own words, they have hope for a better future. You can also write here. It brought them hope, right? And they strongly believe in the message, in his message, okay, of a better life. Or elevate from poverty, as what I wrote previously. Alright, all these things you can write down inside your explanation. Firmly believe in his message of a better life, and that he can elevate them from poverty. What else did I write here? The messages appeal to him, and they strongly believe in in what is being said by the Nazi, which clearly shows that they wanted to vote for the Nazi party and be under the Nazi rule. So that is my first paragraph. Answer the question, point, evidence, explanation. Now, a rule of thumb again, like I say, the best way to do reliability is just to check and say that it is reliable because it is supported by either your background, either your context knowledge or another source. If let's say you can find another source, for example, source A, right? So source A here is a graph from a German newspaper. As you can see, in 1928, right, there was a slump in the Nazi votes because of prosperity, right, by the Weimar government. But once the Great Depression hit, you must know, 1929, it was the era of the Great Depression. Unemployment actually went up, and when unemployment went up, people actually voted for the Nazi parties. So why is it that they voted for the Nazi party as unemployment went up? It's the same thing, right? Because they strongly believe in Hitler's message, right, that he can elevate them from poverty. Yes, so the trend here is the Nazi vote is actually going up, the percentage, right? It means that people actually want to be under the Nazi rule. So yes, this source actually supports source D because it also tells me that people wanted to be under Nazi rule based on the almost similar criteria that they believe in his message. They believe that he's the one that can help bring Germany out of poverty. So let's see how they write the second paragraph. Okay, AEQ one more time. Answer it one more time. Source D, main source. D will be your main source. Write it one more time. Proves that Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule. I'm answering the question here. Then you give me the reason as supported by source A. And then you have to write reliable. So follow exactly. Your first line should look something like this to be very clear. Then my evidence. Evidence shows the increase in percentage of votes of the Nazi party from less than 10% to about 44% after the March 1933 elections. Then you write down your conclusion. So what, then what? Implication of all these evidences clearly shows that the Germans, right, the Germans wanted to be under the rule. They were heavily influenced by the message of hope and the message of a better life from their present circumstances. So I've clearly interpreted the graph, and my interpretation is based on what is my point. So the link back to the point that the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule is very clear. The Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule because they were heavily influenced by the message of hope, a better life from their present circumstances. Yes, so because there's a match here, right? D also proves and says the same thing as A, which is the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule. Bear in mind, you must repeat the point one more time in the first line of your second paragraph to make the match clear. And of course, your explanation has also to be clear in order to get the full marks for your cross-reference. Once you're done, please don't forget to write your conclusion, which is just repeating every single thing. Right? Reason first. Since A supports D, then you answer question. Then you write reliable. D is reliable. Since A supports D, D is reliable. Then after that, you answer the full question again and say hence D is reliable. Proving that the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule, which is the initial statement of the question that they gave to you. Alright, so in a nutshell, this is how your reliability answer should look like. Of course, there's a higher level which is checking the provenance analysis to do your reliability. Okay, but that one, I think I will not go through that one. But for those that know how to do it, you can just go ahead and do it after this. But for those that are still unclear or whatever, this is the basic expectation, alright, to get your B grade. Alright, first paragraph, infer the main source, do a basic inference. Second paragraph, do a secondary inferences based on the exact same point. And because the point is the same, they are hence reliable and hence answer the question that it proves that the Germans wanted to be under Nazi rule.